Good evening. At this time, if you would, please silence your cell phones and be advised that these proceedings are being recorded. If you desire to address the City Council during the meeting, please complete a request to speak form. They are available at the entrance, and once you fill it out, if you'll present it to our City Clerk, and speakers will be called upon at the appropriate time. At this time, I will call to order the City Council meeting for the City of Grand Terrace, regular meeting for February 26, 2019. Our invocation tonight will be given by Pastor Mike Leno of Azure Hills Seventh-day Adventist Church, and our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by our City Attorney, Adrian Guerrero. If you would please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father God, we are grateful for this community and thankful for the responsibilities and the opportunities presented in this community. Give us knowledge and wisdom and compassion. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Leno. Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Madam City Clerk, may we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Allen.
Here.
Councilmember Hussey.
Present.
Councilmember Robles.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
I am here.
Mayor McNabo.
Present.
Madam Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I did want to make mention of tonight, we will close in honor of Mr. Bill Darwin, who passed away on the 19th of this month. He moved to California from Texas when he was 8 years old. He was a businessman in Grand Terrace. He owned Darwin Floors. He started Darwin Floors. He also was a well-respected commercial real estate owner, and he was a founding member of our Lions Club, our Grand Terrace Area Chamber of Commerce, and he spent a lot of hours in the community. A lot of people considered him one of our founding fathers of the city, so we will close in his memory tonight. On special presentations, is Becky Cogley here? Okay, so we have American Red Cross Blood Drive presentation by Becky Cogley. If you would come forward, please.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members, and residents of the City of Grand Terrace. It's with great pride that I come here to present tonight because the City of Grand Terrace is highly engaged in its community. And a few months ago, you held your first blood drive with the American Red Cross right here at City Hall. And you beat your goal for the day of the blood drive. And as a result, over 100 residents, not just in Grand Terrace, but in the local area, were saved. So I want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for all of that, and I'm sure all the recipients of those gracious donations were very, very happy. As a result of that, the city agreed to go ahead and host another blood drive, and that's coming up on Wednesday, the 6th of March, from 1:30 to 7:30 p.m., and it will be held here in this building again, and we invite everybody in this room and everybody you know to please come and donate. I checked last night, there are only about 13 people that signed up so far, so we have, a few days yet. Please, if you can rally the troops, and we'd love to see if you could beat your goal, again, to do that. The last time I was here, I had more of a lengthy presentation. This is a single page, and if all of you want to keep it, it's to give you information about what goes on just in California itself. And the print is so small that, honestly, with my glasses, I can't read it from here. So I'm not going to go over it at length, but I do want to emphasize a couple things. Less than 38% of the U.S. population is eligible to donate, and in the U.S., about 8 to 10% do. But in our fair state of California, less than 4% of Californians are donating blood. So that means California is what's called a deficit state. Thank you. That means on any given day, blood banks, and by the way, we're the largest in the state and in the U.S., are forced to have to go across state lines to look for surplus blood to bring it into the state here to our local hospitals to make sure that all of our family members are cared for. There has not been surplus blood for the last 2 years, folks. Those other states have had issues with bad weather, right? Massive flooding, a lot of all kind of crazy weather. Here in California, what have we been dealing with? Fires, right? And then now we have snow, which we're not used to down here either. All of that adds up and it's cumulative. Blood is very fragile. If you're looking at the different components of blood that get shipped to the hospitals, platelets would be the most fragile, and those platelets last 5 days. So if you are a cancer patient and you are trying to get better and there are no platelets for your treatment, you're going to be in trouble. And that's what's happening right this moment in our hospitals. So I just want to leave you with that. Every single person in this room has the capacity to change a person's future. And I thank you very much, and I hope to see most of you at the blood drive. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your presentation. We'll move to our consent calendar. Consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial, and they are acted upon by the City Council at one time without discussion. However, any City Council member, staff member, or citizen may request removal of an item from the consent calendar for discussion. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion for the consent calendar if there are no items to be removed.
Mayor, I'd like to remove item 5.
All right. Any other items to be removed? All right.
Mayor, I move that we pass items 1 through 4
All right.
and waive a full reading of items 1 through 4.
Okay. So a motion for items 1 through 4 on the consent calendar. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Motion by Councilmember
What'd you call him?
Allen. I've met you before, right? All right. Motion by Councilmember Allen. Thank you very much. And second by Mayor Pro Tem Wilson. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously with Council Members Allen, Hussey, and Robles voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson voting yes, and Mayor McNabo voting yes.
Thank you. All right. Item 5, Councilmember Hussey.
Yeah, packet page, item 5, packet page 155, the top there, our pays for the franchise fees. What brought this to mind was something that Mayor Pro Tem Wilson said about the Greenbelt and a franchise fee for the, because they're covering the Greenbelt and some of our roads. Are we looking into that, or we decide what we're going to do on that? I mean, it was, Mr. Wilson brought it up, and I was just wondering if we did a follow-up on there.
So,
Some-
so you have a question about
Yeah,
this
'cause
item
you
on
got
here, or you are talking
The
about
items
something
that are on there,
Yes.
but are we leaving out the Greenbelt, or are we going to be bringing that Greenbelt into this equation here?
Mr. City Manager?
Yes, G. Harold Duffy for the record. I'm unfamiliar with your comment about the green belt. Can you help me out with that?
The Mayor Pro Tem mentioned about the Greenbelt maybe last month, about having, we're looking for franchise fees, and that Greenbelt covers observation and that road construction, everything that, that goes with the damage to that road. And it was just, when I was reading this about all this franchise fee, we charge all these other companies this, I didn't know if we ever thought about doing that for that Greenbelt. I don't know who owns it. So Wilson, you could probably elaborate.
State Water
Mayor-
Resources Board.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson? Okay, so is that part of this particular report?
It is
Okay.
not. And so it's my understanding what you're saying. And what's happening is, because that's the Department of Water Resources, we would need to work with the Department of Water Resources to see if we can get some kind of an impact or franchise because of that. So I can bring that back at a later date, but it wouldn't be on, this is only about existing franchise.
Okay, I was just, it just came to my mind,
Okay,
and
sure.
I was reading it, and it was just a thought, but.
Absolutely.
Okay, so is there an issue with this particular report, or would you like to move the approval of it?
No, I'd like to make a
receive and
motion to
file?
Receive and file, number
Okay.
5, please.
Motion by Councilmember Hussey to receive and file.
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Allen. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously with council members Allen, Hussey, and Robles voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson voting yes, and Mayor McNabo voting yes.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on any items not appearing on the regular agenda. Because of restrictions contained in California law, the city council may not discuss or act on any item not on the agenda, but may briefly respond to statements made or ask a question for clarification. Items may also get a brief response from staff, and they may be agendized for further discussion at a future meeting. Are there any items for discussion at this time?
No, Madam Mayor.
After all that preamble. Okay, so I'll close public comment, and I'll bring it back to council for their communications, beginning with Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I want to extend my sincerest condolences to the Darwin family. I had met Bill on occasion, and I really admired the work that he and his family did in this city. I wanted to attend the services, but I was down all last week with a bad head cold, and there was quite a bit of things that I missed. So, yeah, I just wanted to offer those to the Bill and Bill's family. So last week like I said, I was down with a cold. Couldn't attend much in the way of meetings or events. I wanted to go to the coffee on Saturday morning, but I did get a chance today to go over to Susan Petta Park. I know a couple of meetings ago I had mentioned that there was some attention that needed to be paid to the landscaping, the bushes and trees, and I noticed that that had occurred, and I appreciate that on the part of staff or whoever was responsible for that. That's such a beautiful place to go and really deserves the attention that it gets. So thank you for that and for helping keep Grand Terrace beautiful. That's all.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Councilmember Bill Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. I did attend the coffee with the Assembly Member Reyes, and it was a pretty good meeting. One of my questions was brought up by a resident about our sheriffs and extra coverage, and one of the things I brought up was the program that we have now, the HOPE program, and the Assemblywoman Reyes really liked the program, so we're going to go in more in depth about that program. If you guys don't know, the HOPE program is for homelessness, and we have sheriffs right now on a trial basis, so they come up with, they got a call about a homeless person, instead of arresting them, taking them to jail, they offer resources for them, and of course, if they do have an arrest warrant or something, they will pay the price, but we also offer resources, so if we come up with a vet or something, that the sheriffs are usually the first responders there, and they're the first ones, on the scene to hopefully take care of them. So she was really excited about that, because part of the thing that when the committee she's on is for homelessness, and talking about teens homelessness and foster children. When they're 18, they pretty much get booted out of their foster care, and then they're out on the streets. So hopefully we could get that program budgeted by the state, and the squeaky wheel gets the oil, so I'm going to be squeaking my wheel to her a lot on this. So, and one other thing, side note, my neighbor's house, and then around the corner, we're having break-ins. People are going around knocking on doors and see if anybody's home. We had them knock on our door, but we were home. Our dogs probably prevent a lot of stuff. If they could talk to me, they'd probably say, "Hey, Dad, I took care of this today." But they're breaking the sliding glass doors, and what they're doing on that, because a lot of sliding glass doors, if they pop them open, they slide, and you have an alarm, the alarm will go off. But if they break the door, the alarm will go off. So suggestion, if you do have an alarm company, see if they could put a break glass alarm on your door. That might help out. And neighbors, just watch out for each other. If you see something suspicious, report it. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Hussey. Councilmember Sylvia Robles.
I'd also like to extend my condolences to the Darwin family. I enjoyed my friendship with him, and I wish his family my best regards. Last week, and I'm sure all of us got an email from the League of Cities with an invitation to listen in on a White House conference on infrastructure. And so I did take up the invitation, responded, and invited our city manager to listen in. And I had to do a lot of homework to catch up with probably a lot of stuff that you are aware of in your role with SBCTA. But apparently the Federal Highway Act is going to have to be reauthorized, and President Trump, what he considers one of his signature efforts is to budget $1 trillion in infrastructure spending. They want to focus on bridges, ports, and digital infrastructure in rural areas. They're calling it one of the greatest focuses on infrastructure since President Eisenhower. And for those young people, President Eisenhower was responsible for the interstate highways, and some fascinating stories about that, where there wasn't connections to cities, and they would get in these vehicles and try to figure out how they were going to map this federal highway system. It's pretty interesting reading. The discussion was on what's important locally, how to work with the new Congress, the federal permitting process. It says it currently takes 8+ years to go through the federal permitting process. Some of the people that spoke out from cities was talking about in California, the pilot vehicle mileage charge, about transit for rail. Some areas in the South were interesting to listen to because they talked about how cell service there was just almost non-existent in some areas and very spotty. The issues from some of the municipalities, more in like New Mexico and the South, they wanted to encourage some of the money to go directly to the municipalities, because they says right now it goes to the state, and the state has different priorities, and small cities kind of just get shut to the aside. I found that interesting for myself because I thought it'd be nice if we could vocalize our small city in this arena, and maybe when we do our priorities workshop, there'll be some issues we can raise there. And then the NEPA streamlining, there was discussion on that. I always like to participate in this because it's a goodwill, and because of that goodwill, they have sent us direct contact information that I forwarded to staff, and I also forwarded it to all of you. And they're asking us to contact them and to enter into dialogue with them. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Robles, thank you for taking the time to be in on that conference call. Mayor Pro Tem Doug Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have anything for this evening.
Thank you. And I don't have anything beyond offering my condolences to the Darwin family as well. So at this time, we'll move to our public hearings. To speak at a public hearing item, please fill out a request to speak form and give it to the city clerk. Each person will be allowed 3 minutes to address the city council. If you challenge in court any action taken concerning a public hearing item, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised during the public hearing, described in this notice or in written correspondence delivered to the city at or prior to the public hearing. And so all public hearings will be conducted in the following format. We will open the public hearing. We will hear or we will request written communication, city council questions of staff, applicants' comments, not limited to 3 minutes, any oral arguments in favor or opposed to the speakers or to the applicants will be limited to 3 minutes. Applicants will have a rebuttal if there is an argument in opposition. The public hearing will be closed, and then the city council will deliberate. So at this time, we will open the public hearing. And this is for the prioritization of funding recommendations for community development block grant funds for the program year 2019-2020. Director Sandra Molina.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. So this is a public hearing as indicated by the mayor for the 2019-2020 CDBG program year. This staff report does promote our 2030 vision, including our Vision statement, being a place where residents can enjoy quality of life that fosters pride and engaged community, because the CDBG program funds community programs that benefit Grand Terrace residents. It also promotes goal number 4, to develop and implement successful partnerships. So the CDBG program is a federal program that's intended to benefit low to moderate income persons. It funds programs that eliminate blight or meet an urgent need. The CDBG program guidelines indicate that when a participating city, or excuse me, a cooperating city receives less than $150,000 in grant allocation, then only 4 public service projects can be funded. The expected allocation for City of Grand Terrace is $55,628. And we also have a fund called Unprogrammed Funds that has a current balance of $26,000. And this particular fund can only be used for construction projects. So last year, for the 2018-2019 program year, the City Council made the funding recommendations that are shown here on the slide. In the staff report, this particular table, Table 1, was mislabeled as the 2019-2020 funding program. It also only showed public service projects. It did not list the construction project for the ADA doors at the senior center. So that there's a memo that was provided to the council that shows that correction. But these are the programs, 4 service programs, and the 5th one being a construction project that used unprogrammed funds. So for this 2019-2020 program year, the county forwarded to the city 6 applications that met the funding, or excuse me, met the guidelines for the program. So the City of Grand Terrace again applied for a ADA project, but that's to do the interior doors adjacent to the, adjacent to the elevator here at City Hall. The Rec Center applied again for youth classes, workshops, and camp activities, and also scholarships. Family Services Association submitted 2 applications, one for the Senior Center Coordinator. This is a program that the city had previously been the applicant, but since we subcontract to FSA, we asked FSA to take the lead and apply this program year. Family Services Association also applied for the Senior Nutrition Program. The County Library, again, for the GT Library Literacy Education Program. And the Girl Scouts of San Gorgonio Council also applied for a Classroom to Career program. The total requested funds, the total requested grant funding is $103,000. But in reality, when you exclude the ADA door project, which is a separate funding source, we're really looking, the council's really looking at 5 programs by which to allocate the $55,600. And because we're limited to only 4 programs, what staff contacted the county this morning and asked them a question. Actually, the city manager directed staff to ask this question, which was actually a good question to see how we could get all these projects funded. And that was, can Family Services Association take those 2 applications and combine them into one, and thereby opening up a 4th slot for the Girl Scouts project or for all 5 projects? And the county said yes, that could happen. The caveat is that the city council has to agree that that can happen, and the council has to be very clear as far as the funding recommendations being made for the 2 sub-programs within the application. And Family Services Association has to also agree to this change. We also spoke with Family Services Association. They're open to this. They just want to make sure that they can coordinate correctly with the county to make sure that they make the changes appropriately. So that's something that they are open to also doing, so they would agree to that. So with that, that change, staff is recommending that the city council make the funding recommendations shown on the slide. So we would propose recommending $10,000, which is the full request, to the library. Family Services Association for the coordinator position, and for the Senior Nutrition Program, it would be a total of $35,000. recommended. And the way that would break up would be that 10,000 would go to the nutrition program, and for the coordinator position, the city would make a funding recommendation of $25,000, which is consistent with the last 2 program years. The rec center asked for $15,000. We would recommend $7128, which is what they received last year. And the Girl Scouts would then receive the remainder to total of $55,628, and that would be $3,500. The library, the Grand Terrace ADA doors, out of the equation, we're using unprogrammed funds, and so we'd recommend that the council make that allocation as well. So this is a public hearing. Madam Mayor and Council, we did publish in the local paper and provide notice to all the applicants. And with that, I will conclude my presentation, and I can respond to any questions.
Thank you, Director Molina. Are there questions of staff at this time? Okay. I'm seeing none at this time. Is there any written communication? Okay. So at this time, we can go to applicants' comments. Do you have a request to speak from the applicants? Thank you. All right, we'll begin with Lisa Llewellyn.
Good evening, City Council members, Madam Mayor, and City Manager Duffy. My name is Lisa Llewellyn. I'm with the San Bernardino County Library System, and I am librarian for the Grand Terrace branch. The core mission of our library is literacy for all. We provide programs and services for learners of all ages, from babies and toddlers to children to teens to adults, and all of this is free of charge. CDBG funding specifically goes towards our adult literacy services. And what are adult literacy services? We provide one-on-one tutoring to adult learners who struggle with reading. And typically these are adults who read significantly below a 6th grade reading level, but speak enough English to complete the intake and assessment. It's not an ESL or an English language learning course, because that's referred to adult ed. Adult Literacy Services also provides basic computer instruction and practice, as computer literacy is a must in this day and age. A couple of other important resources for adult learners that I wanted to share with everyone today that I'm really excited about is learners can get their high school diploma online if they don't have it. Our program is specifically for parents and legal guardians with children under the age of 5 and under. And it's completely free, and it's completely online, it's completely self-paced. And there's 2 ways to get started. They can come to the library, fill this out, or take one and give it to any library staff, or there's a contact for our library administration on here as well. So if you know of anybody who's young, has young children, needs to get their high school diploma, tell them to check into their local San Bernardino County Library. And one other thing I wanted to talk about is a database we have called Vet Now. It is specifically help for veterans. They can get live help with VA benefits and resources. They can connect with an expert to learn about VA benefits and community resources. They can get live online resume assistance, job coaching, and tutoring for college. And I just wanted to say thank you to the City of Grand Terrace for supporting literacy.
Thank you, Ms. Llewellyn. I appreciate you being here tonight. Next is Kanae Hawley.
Thank you so very much, and thank you for allowing me to be here this evening, Mayor, City Council members, and our Girl Scouts in the room. I also would like to say thank you to Family Service Association for changing their application so that we might be considered for this funding. I'm here to share just a little bit about our application, which is our Classroom to Career program, where girls from Terrace Hills Middle School have participated in this program for 4 years. The girls participate in multiple immersive learning experiences at a variety of industry and post-secondary learning sites. These are all from our local area. This is important because research tells us that girls are much more likely to lose interest than their male counterparts to lose interest in STEM once they hit that middle school age. These experiences allow girls the opportunity to link what they're learning in school with real-life career paths. The program aligns with the linked learning concepts. I suspect that most of you are familiar with the linked learning concepts, and this is project-based learning on a specific topic and its practical application in a real-world setting. So the pathways that are offered at our Grand Terrace High School include the arts, engineering, and healthcare. So through this program, the middle school girls will have exposure to those pathways prior to having to make those educational decisions or which pathway they may be interested in. So a few examples of the learning experiences that the girls from Terrace Hills have experienced over the last couple of years. Allied Health Day, they go to Crafton Hills and they have the opportunity to learn about careers in a variety of healthcare or medical fields. At Bourne's Engineering, girls work with female engineering students where they constructed towers. They participate in an exercise where they learned about how an artificial heart valve is constructed. At Northrop Grumman, the girls work with circuits with the help of Northrop Grumman female engineers. They also participate in industry-focused learning. So just last week, the Terrace Hills girls were learning from women from Omnitrans, Caltrans, HDR, and Women's Transportation Seminar. The girls design, and you mentioned Eisenhower and the freeway design, so the girls were designing on-ramps and exit ramps from the freeways. They were also designing and mapped out the current modes of transportation in their neighborhood, and then they were also noted what the lacking transportation modes were. So this activity encourages them to think like a transportation planner. Your support is very important for this program, and this is for a variety of reasons. You mentioned the state funding. We no longer receive the SB 1070 state funding. Previously, those funds came down to the state and were distributed through the community college districts. We no longer qualify, or the program no longer qualifies for that as they've changed the restrictions on that. Multiple funders have now shifted their funding to different priorities. So they've shifted from STEM education to environmental education, for example. Examples of those are Edison, SoCalGas, Andover, and the Community Foundation. Those are just a few that have shifted their priorities. So in closing, I would like to share a comment from Kristen Griffith, who started the program, or she was the person we worked with at Terrace Hills when the program first began. At the end of the year, the girls were much more confident and felt they could do whatever they wanted in their lives. Thank you to Kanae Hawley and Carrie Raleigh. You ladies are really making a difference. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Hawley. I appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you.
Next is Tom Donahue.
Good evening, Mayor McNaboe, members of the council, city staff, and to our Girl Scouts here in the audience tonight. This is our future, and we're happy to work together because that's what we're here for, is we are always better when we work together. My particular program is called Senior Nutrition, but Family Service, we believe in family strength is community strength, and we know we can't do it alone, because alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much. Our program at the Senior Center provides meals on a daily basis, Monday through Friday, for the seniors at the center. And we also take care of seniors that you don't see on a regular basis, those that are homebound, where we deliver meals to them on a regular basis. Over 23 Grand Terrace residents do receive meals for us in the homebound program. And we'll serve on unduplicated over 120 seniors at the Senior Center. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, because our program is for 62 and up through the HUD program, Community Development Block Grants. Our program through the Older Americans Act is 60 and over. And I believe at the Senior Center, 55 and up is who we consider a senior, who we take care of. So there's many layers of seniors that we take care of. But all those programs, we work together to leverage your dollars that you invest to keep them here in this particular area. I tell people as you look around, it's extremely important that you look long-term at senior issues, because the senior tsunami that you might hear about is not coming. The senior tsunami is really here. The numbers we put together in our grant application were over a year ago. That number is growing exponentially right now, even in the city of Grand Terrace, but extremely growing strongly in the region of both Riverside and San Bernardino County. So your dollars are greatly appreciated to enable us to keep pace, not only with what our current level of service is, but for the growing and future part of service that is coming. By 2025, over 20% of the residents in California will be over the age of 65. So we appreciate your investment of the facilities. We appreciate your investment into our program, into the services, and to our companion program that manages the senior center of how we can work together to provide and continue this service for the residents of Grand Terrace. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have on our program.
Thank you, Mr. Donahue. I appreciate you being here tonight.
It's our pleasure. Thank you.
And our final speaker is Dariana Ortiz.
Good evening. Thank you so much for letting me speak tonight. My name is Dariana Ortiz. I am the Community Centered Services Director at Family Service Association. I know that Tom already spoke a little bit about our agency. The decision to combine the applications was really easy for us, so I'm really happy that we're able to provide the opportunity to the Girl Scouts. Outside of the senior centers, I do oversee our Child Abuse Prevention Council for Riverside County, so it's really nice to give the youth a cool opportunity like this. In regards to our application for the senior center, I feel that we're so appreciative of, the funding that we've had over this past year, and it would be really great to continue that. The services that we're able to provide allow for these seniors that may otherwise not be able to obtain an opportunity for socialization, for physical activities. In partnership with the city arrangement for the bus, we're able to plan trips, which they really, really love. Including casino trips, just regular day-to-day trips, such as going out to grocery stores, things like that, which may be difficult for some of these seniors to do otherwise. So I think with the continued funding, we'll be able to continue to provide those services, which are really valuable to this population.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. I appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any speakers in favor or opposition of these items?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right. So then we don't need applicant's rebuttal either. So I will close the public hearing at this time and bring it to the council for their deliberation. Councilmember Allen.
So I'm really pleased and thank the staff for their being able to, at the last minute, make that adjustment and to be able to add the Girl Scouts. My question is, by combining the FSA grants and adding the Girl Scouts, will it change any of the amounts for any of the other applicants, any of the recommended funding amounts?
No, it doesn't, did not make any changes.
Okay. So each one, it will still get the amount they were getting before, okay?
Yes, so in the recommendation, we were recommending 7128 for the rec center and 3,500 for the Girl Scouts, and so that didn't change. All that changed was going from 5 applications to 4.
Okay.
Because we're only allowed to have 4 projects.
Correct.
Yeah, I understand, but I thought the total recommended amounts before and after the addition might have changed, but I see that now, and that's fine. You guys, that's great. Thank you.
Any further questions? Councilmember Hussey. It's deliberation, so what would you like to do with these items? Do you turn your,
Oh, I'm sorry. I'd like to do a comment and then make a motion. Anybody else doesn't have a comment on it?
Sure.
First of all, I just want to thank everybody for everything you do with your programs. And I wish we could have more money to give to you, but you guys do a lot with very little, and being the example for our future and taking care of our seniors and making sure they have stuff to do, their seniors, and good balanced diets. And the library, thank you for taking care of our veterans. You know, I'm a veteran, and it really helps out when you have the resources. I mean, we all grew up with libraries and go there and check out a book, and that was what we did in the summertime, but it's a great resource. And the Girl Scouts, thank you for, you know, your leadership and doing everything you're doing. You know, you're our future. And, wow, well, a lot of projects. I think we should have them on our committee there, Mr. Duffy, maybe the Planning Commission or something, help out, you know, with all those projects they're doing. But I just want to thank you guys for everything you're doing with so little, and God bless. And I'd like to make a motion to approve item 6, Mayor, with the recommended funding by staff.
Okay. Mr. City Attorney, do we need to take the combination separately, or can we just take staff recommendation in total?
We can take staff recommendation in total, and I would say as shown on the screen above currently, which shows the San Bernardino County GT Library, 10,000, the Family Services Association combined, 35,000, the Rec Center, 7,128, and Girl Scouts, 3,500 in one motion.
Okay, and then the ADA doors and the in-program funds?
That's correct,
Okay.
yes.
Is that what your motion is, Mr. Hussey?
Correct, thank you.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, so I have a motion by Councilmember Hussey and a second by Councilmember Allen. Councilmember Robles, did you have a comment? Yeah, I was going to second. Okay, very good. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously with Council Members Allen, Hussey, and Robles voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson voting yes, and Mayor McNamara voting yes.
Okay, thank you. And I echo Councilmember Hussey's sentiments. I wish we had money to fund all of your requests, as I believe most of the council members do too. So thank you so much, and thank you, staff, for putting this together. We'll move on to new business. Item 7, February 2019 Award of Community Benefits Funds.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, Cynthia Fortune, representing the Finance Department. Staff report before you tonight is for an application received by the Community Benefits Fund. The staff report supports the following goals. Goal number 1, ensuring our fiscal viability through the continuous review of grant applications received. And goal number 4, develop and implement successful partnerships through productive collaboration with community youth programs. So for the month of February, we received 1 application from Terrace View Elementary School PTA. Now, this activity program that they have submitted was to create an anti-bullying video to promote kindness, and this is to promote and support youth development to create a safer, stronger community. The amount that they were requesting was $700, and as shown, they actually provided a breakdown of what the $700 will be used for. So the table before you shows the original approved amount of $20,000. What we have approved to date is a little over $10,000. If this proposal is approved, we will still have a remaining balance of $8,600. What I've also added on the report as an attachment is just to provide City Council with what we've awarded and who we've given awards to over the last several years. And as you are aware, the Community Benefits Fund is in its 4th year. Yeah, so that breakdown just for council is on packet page 288. So that actually concludes my report. Principal Greer of Terrace View Elementary is here tonight. Should you have any questions for her? Julia Ferncoes is here representing Terrace View Elementary PTA. And there are actually several students who are going to create the video who are here. They are both nervous and excited, but they would like to say hello to City Council, if that is all right with City Council. So I'm going to ask them all to come up.
Please bring them forward.
Do you have a mic? Can you reach? Do you guys want to say hi and talk about your video? Go ahead.
This is Ruby and Alex. They're the students that thought of the idea to do this video and created the club and invited their friends, these girls here, to participate. So this is a very student-driven project. That's why there was not funding available on site, because it's their idea, and so I'll let them tell you about it.
One of the things that we wish to do with this project is to promote kindness and to promote social skills in this project, and to also maybe promote technology skills, and hopefully for other schools to see these acts of kindness or these things and maybe implement it in their schools, and maybe it'll spread around the community or neighboring communities.
Does that mean that you're going to share this with other schools in the community when you create this video?
Hopefully, because maybe other schools haven't seen this, or something has pulled them back from not seeing this kindness. So we would hopefully want to see other schools seeing these the video, and see these acts of kindness from our school.
Okay. Council members, do you have questions for the applicant? Councilmember Hussey.
So when you're all done with the video, can you bring it back and show us?
Yes, we're going to be most likely posting it on YouTube as a public video, most likely for other people to see.
Yeah, if you come here and show it, then we could probably put it on Channel 3 if that's all right. So it'd be a good resource. And oh, what a project. So who's the star? All of you? Well, it sounds like a good project you guys came up with, and to stop bullying and stuff, that's a big problem, but get everybody involved, and I'm glad the council could be here to help you with it. But I'm excited to see the video when it's done. Thank you.
Good evening. I just wanted to say a few words, if that's okay. My name is Julia Francos, and I'm a member of the Terrace View Elementary School PTA. I'm also on the school site advisory, and I first heard about this project through Mrs. Greer. She told me it was student-driven, and this was the idea that they had. And at the schools right now, technology is part of the arts. We just don't have the funding to provide that. And this is not one video they want to make. These are fifth graders that will be here all year, this year into next year. They want to make continual videos that show social skills and kindness. This has never been done before, never been offered before. This is a great opportunity for peers to show their peers how important it is to be kind and to abolish bullying, get bullying out. And I know a peer role modeling works because when we do Red Ribbon Week at our school, we have these amazing speakers that come, but we also have the high schoolers that come. And I can tell my children to make good choices, don't do drugs. Mrs. Greer can tell them, their teachers can tell them, and generally they listen to us. But when the high school comes on campus and they say, stay in school and don't do drugs, I see a light bulb go off in these kids. So I know these videos can make a difference, and I'd love to see them have an opportunity to grow this program with the right tools. And just thank you for letting us be here today.
Thank you. That was very brave of you all to come. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to tell us about your videos. Are there any requests to speak on this item?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. So I'll bring it back to council for consideration.
I make the motion to approve the Community Benefit Fund grant applications for $700 to the Terrace View Elementary School PTA for the education-based video project.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Robles,
Second.
second by Councilmember Hussey. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously with council members Allen, Hussey, and Robles voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson voting yes, and Mayor McNabo voting yes.
All right, thank you. We look forward to seeing your videos. We will move on to item number 8, which is an ordinance amending Chapter 4.44 Parking Citation Fines of Title 4 of the Grand Terrace Municipal Code to implement a parking citation payment program in accordance with Assembly Bill 503. Sandra Molina, Planning and Development Services Director.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. So this item is a proposed ordinance. This item does protect the city's mission statement to preserve and protect our community and its exceptional quality of life through thoughtful planning within the constraints of a fiscally responsible government. So, as indicated by the mayor, this ordinance is proposing to amend Chapter 4.44, parking citation fines. And the reasoning behind this ordinance is that Assembly Bill 503 limits the city's ability to place DMV holds on parking citations that are not paid unless the city has implemented a payment plan option for indigent individuals. And so, parking citations, when the car owner, the vehicle owner, does not pay the citation, they do accrue late fees. And if they still continue not to pay the citation, that ends up going to the DMV as a hold. And so when the car is registered, that citation and the late fees have to be paid in order to get the car registered. And so this Assembly bill limits our ability to do that until we have this payment plan in the process. And so the proposed ordinance amends the section 4.44.010 with the general statement that the way we issue, process, and enforce parking citations has to comply with state law. And so that's a very broad statement. But the new portion of the ordinance is section 4.44.015, which creates the payment plan option. And so the way this works, as stipulated by the Assembly bill, is that if an individual has citations totaling $300 or less, they can apply for a payment plan of up to 18 months. But in particular, the provision for indigent individuals is that if a car owner is indigent, they could make an application and provide documentation that they are indigent, and the bottom of the table here identifies the mechanism that could happen. So if a person is receiving certain federal benefits, such as certain benefits such as Medi-Cal, general assistance, or supplemental social security, those are programs that automatically meet that threshold for indigence, or if the person's income is 125% or less of the federal poverty guidelines. Then they would qualify as indigent. And so the processing fee to enroll in the payment program is only $5, but it would be $25 for all others. Also, with regard to the late fees and fines, when a person is indigent, those fees are waived. They're not waived for non-indigent individuals. This ordinance also, in accordance with the state law, says that if a person is in this payment plan and they miss a payment, they have 45 days to correct it. And if they don't, then the late fees are applied again and the DMV hold goes on the individual's record again. So the ordinance also, or the Assembly bill also requires that the city establish an internal policy with regard to how appeals will be handled for reviewing parking citations. And it also requires that this payment plan option be placed on our website. It's placed on the citations and the notices that the individual gets. And so we will have this procedure in place prior to the ordinance being effective. And so with that, staff recommends that the City Council read by title only, waive further reading, and introduce an ordinance of the City Council amending Chapter 4.44. That will conclude my presentation. I'm available to respond to comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Molina. Are there questions of staff at this time? All right, seeing none, are there any requests to speak on this item?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, we'll close public comment and bring it back to council for consideration of a motion.
I'll make a motion, Madam Mayor, that we waive further reading and introduce an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Grand Terrace, amending Chapter 4.44 parking citation fines of Title 4 of the Grand Terrace Municipal Code, comprehensive fee schedules, fines, and taxes of the Grand Terrace Municipal Code to implement a parking citation payment program in accordance with Assembly Bill 503.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Allen,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Hussey. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously with Council Members Allen, Hussey, and Robles voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson voting yes, and Mayor McNabb voting yes.
Thank you. Move to item 9, which is National Orange Show policy regarding noise complaints. Mr. G. Harold Duffy, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. For the record, G. Harold Duffy, City Manager. Tonight's item I'm working on is the National Orange Show event, special events. So, Mayor and Council, that is basically just a snippet of what the residents have been talking about for over a decade now. And if you noticed, one of the things that Lieutenant Wolf told me, if you listen to that sound again, and I'll try and do it one more time.
Listen to it backwards, maybe?
You'll hear a thumping. So often that thumping is what the community hears, and my understanding is the sound meters may not be alerted because of the thumping. And so while the Orange Show may go out and do the perimeter check, they're not doing it for that thumping, they're doing it for a different volume of sound. So as I said, for more than a decade, neighborhoods have had to live with the impact of National Orange Show concerts. Actions taken by cities in the past. In 2011, Grand Terrace City Council threatened legal action against the National Orange Show. The following communities are continuously impacted by noise: San Bernardino, Grand Terrace, Colton, Loma Linda. In 1 or 2 given years, the average is from 150 to 190 complaints regarding the National Orange Show concerts. In 2012, the venue left San Bernardino but returned again in 2014. So approximately 4 years ago, San Bernardino City had negotiated a 5-page MOU with the National Orange Show, but the document was never really executed. So the National Orange Show now has a newly drafted noise complaint policy that the city received about 2 weeks ago. However, the policy may not be helpful to resolve our issues. So the policy only accepts complaints from residents, hospitals, and residential facilities. It excludes businesses. There's a pre-sound check that will determine response to complaints. So what they'll do is they'll do a pre-sound concert check, and they'll go out to a certain area, and then they'll establish that, okay, there's not an issue. So then if they get any complaints from that particular area, they will not respond to those complaints. And then they don't respond to spikes in sounds. That doesn't trigger the correction, only long durations of sound disturbances. So 3 to 10 minutes, they would then say, okay, now we need to adjust the sound system. And then once the pre-sound check is completed, National Orange Show may not respond if they believe pre-sound check is valid and the complaint doesn't warrant them to go back and check out the system again. So staff recommends, after reading the policy, that the council seek a meeting with the National Orange Show and other impacted communities. Also, the council, staff recommends that the council use 1 extra sheriff to augment our resources on concert nights and then bill the National Orange Show for responses. In 2012, the city actually did that. They actually had 6 deputies on staff, and they went out and they actually billed, and they received the funding for that building for those 6 officers, about $2,900. Also, staff recommends that the council investigate a partnership where the National Orange Show pays for permanent sound meters throughout the city that automatically alert the Orange Show of noise issues. I also talked extensively with Lieutenant Wolf, who's actually worked some of the shows and actually has had a good relationship with the promoter, so he's also available to answer any questions the council might have. So with that, I'm available for direction from the council.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy. Questions? Councilmember Robles.
You know, I don't have the attachment to, for reimbursement of all 6 deputies, attachment 2, but my question is that there was a ticket issued for disturbing the peace and it was dismissed. Now, I know I had to make a formal complaint because just calling's not enough. So So if people are going to be complaining, and I go through the trouble of doing a formal complaint on behalf of myself and the peace for people that are calling in the middle of the night complaining about this, and they're just going to be dismissed, what's the point here?
Yeah, and so what we would be recommending is that, so in that particular case where that ticket was dismissed, they actually cited the National Orange Show CEO, and the DA declined to prosecute them for that particular issue, said that it was out of his particular control. So what Lieutenant Wolf is recommending is that we actually have a standard format that we write the complaint down, and then we take those multiple complaints, and then we go to the DA and say that this is a particular issue, and not only do we have one incident, but we have multiple incidents. That he thinks that might carry some more weight versus one citation.
Well, okay, so when I took office in 2012, this was already going on, and so it's 2012, they were addressing the noise issues. So I came on midstream when Mayor, at the time, Stankiewicz and Bernardo Sandoval were taking the lead on this. And then for 2 years, we didn't have any concerts.
Right.
So they came back in 2014, and we started with that issue again. So here it says, going to DeVore, which Mr. Valdivia, as a councilman, because it affects his 3rd ward, and he's now the mayor, they didn't want to do because the venue then drops from 60,000 to only 40,000 concert goers, and because of the traffic constraints, it takes 3.5 hours to get out of there. And then there's some discussion about economic benefit, which is significant. But I'm very exasperated, and I know many in the community are very exasperated. I live at the base of Honey Hills, and I'm deeply impacted on this. This has ruined my sleep, has ruined vacations where I'm packed and ready to do a cross-country trip, and I haven't gotten any sleep. And I'm really fed up as a resident of Grand Terrace, and I would like to see a subcommittee on this where we have 2 council people, ushering this through and coming back with some recommendations and also with some reporting on what's going on. And so we can really get this item wrestled down. I'm completely fed up, and I think there's a lack of goodwill from the Orange Show board. And I think they're being haughty and condescending, and I don't appreciate it. And I'll yield now.
Thank you, Councilmember Robles. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Allen.
Is National Orange Show open to the idea of this partnership, so to speak? Is this some sort of like a committee that would be formed between us and them, and we would meet periodically? Or is that just for them to be able to find a location for the sound meters? Who would determine that, and what would the meters look like and all that?
So what the National Orange Show is open to is the policy which they provided, which staff believe isn't adequate and won't address the issues that are facing Grand Terrace. So what we'll do is we will make a call to the National Orange Show along with the other cities and say our council, depending on the council's action, has said this, and we'd like to move forward with that, meeting with you, whatever the council decides to do. And then we would want to meet, but then there's strength in numbers because there are other cities that are having similar issues. And so that's the direction. I would take that direction from the council.
Apparently the community in San Manuel is also having issues with the noise. Councilmember Hussey.
Yeah, Steph, you talked about one of the things they're not listening to, thumping the bass on their, I have hearing aids and I take them off when the concert's going. I can still, when you have a hearing problem, you can still feel the bass. And how many times you guys go and you hear cars and they have the bass on, it just drives me crazy. That's all you hear. So these meters that they're looking for a different frequency and a pitch, and then if we take them to court or whatever, the DA, they're gonna say, hey, we only got this reading, we didn't get the base. I mean, can't we, it should be the base. The base is the most important. That's where you're gonna get the thumping off the echo off the mountains and the atmosphere and stuff is the base. So we're gonna need those readings also. I mean, why, they don't wanna do it for probably that reason. And
And I think what you want to do is you're trying to build a record that would indicate that, so we get, people call, then I get calls, then I call the line. When I call the promoter tells me and also Lieutenant Wolf, there are no calls from Grand Terrace. And then the thing is, though, people call in and they're supposed to get a live person, but they get a recording, so they get frustrated. So I've called several times and I finally get someone, but we need to build a record so we can say, besides the cooperative effort that the council wants to meet with Orange Show, we need to build a record to show that these incidents are happening. And also, building the record, you can also show, if we get a complaint on observation, get a complaint on Preston, get a complaint all over the place, you can digitally represent that to show where the sound is hitting. And so a visual presentation of that is showing that it's not only, in certain parts, it's hit and miss all over the city, along with in other places throughout the city.
then why can't they just, I'm sorry, Mayor, just have a standard of their volume and that's it? That's the highest they can go. It's not going to do any complaints. It's not going to do anything, so turn it up and trying to not get in trouble or get caught. Just a standard volume setting policy, and that's it. You can't go past 5.
Well, they can do that. My research shows that they actually have the ability to have a system put in place where if the level if it gets to a certain level, the sound will even shut off. We're talking about something that you've been dealing with for a decade. Technology has changed dramatically, where sound meters could alarm them directly at the concert, and they can make some modification based on that. So there's an opportunity if they're willing to actually, and we're consistently engaged and dogmatic about trying to help them resolve this issue.
The board members have expressed the belief that it doesn't really bother the people in this city. It's only a handful, and then further say that, well, it's only one night's sleep or 2 nights' sleep. Periodically, and back to Councilmember Robles talking about this being an economic driver for them, but it doesn't help the surrounding cities. And I don't believe that the board members of the National Orange Show actually live in town, and so they're disturbed only when they get the calls. And
part of the issue for the longest period of time was the concept that the National Orange Show was its own entity under the State Fair program. San Bernardino has now said that is not correct. You must follow our rules. San Bernardino is applying, it makes them use their law enforcement. But one of the conversations with the city manager is from San Bernardino is really interesting because she puts it this way: imagine at 2 o'clock in the morning after the concert's over that 60,000 people leave that center and just disperse throughout neighborhoods and everywhere else. And so it's a significant impact for them, but it's also an impact for everybody else. And as the mayor said, we don't get an economic bump on that. And so I don't know if it would be worth it because it's a significant issue.
Councilmember Robles.
This is something that's been going on since 2012. There was a break of 2 years. So now it's 2014, isn't it? 2019? Mm-hmm. Okay, so when is enough enough? And what they do is, unless I complain, and I have to go through you, and I know how to find you, they always make it louder, closer to 2 in the morning. And there was somewhere in the background there should be an article about it. They said, oh well, our attendees expect to have that crescendo.
So they're hearing it wiped out from the concert prior to that.
And that's part of why they come. And the Lions Club had an event once there and one of these events was going to happen. So these women are dressed like porn stars, okay? it's a big, and I've heard from the younger people that, they go around driving by the Target to see what gal they can pick up, that they just open the door and the girl would jump in. I mean, these are the kinds of things that, we're bending over backwards to allow. So, in looking at Airbnb rentals, because of these events, and it was just by accident, there's people that actually rent a tent for $35 so that people can have lodging. People actually have a patio where they have lattice, and they rent those for concert goers to sleep. So I think we're beyond our capacity of reasonable things. And they have no intention of being a good neighbor. The only time they want to get away with what they can get away with, and they push the envelope, and so it's like, I'm going to complain, they're going to lower the music, but I still lost sleep and I'm very angry now. So my quiet enjoyment of my home has been, and what I really think is they have these several times a year. So it's more than, if it were once a year, I would probably just let it go. But when it's like quarterly, and I'm barely getting over and I think the residents, and I think it's an economic loss for us. There was one gentleman that would always talk to both me and the mayor, and I wonder if he just moved. I wonder if some people, would find this area not desirable anymore, and our inability to deal with this and just move. I think it has some big damage to us.
Mayor Pro Tem.
It seems to me that when we put together our general plan and the inception of the city of Grand Terrace, there was a great deal of discussion, and there still is, about noise. But that's an impact. And even though our noise circumstances in relation to railroads and cars and so on are somewhat controllable, we are being impacted by something that seems interesting that we don't have any recourse, because isn't the airspace over our community our airspace so far as sound impact?
I would say that they don't have the right to disturb our peace.
Well, okay. Same game plan. I mean, considering the fact that, if you've got a condominium and you were living next to a house that had a raucous party, and the next thing you know, they were blasting away at you, I don't imagine that would be allowed. So how can they inflict something on us that they know is damaging to us at all times, in accordance with our general plan that says we can't do it and we won't put up with it? Because there are a whole series of formulations that say how much noise a person can stand in a particular noise level of decibels. And for example, there are things that we take for granted. We even provide for in a temporary situation for lawn equipment. And that's supposed to be considered, acceptable. I don't think it should be, but that seems to be a situation. And I'm one that's been an advocate for some kind of sound control all the way through. It just seems to me that we can't have two different laws. The general plan says this, and yet somebody inflicts, impact on us. That means they pay. It's called damage. Okay? So there seems to be a way to collect. So we stop it.
Councilmember Allen.
So my question, based on Mayor Pro Tem Wilson, what he was saying, I was going to ask this earlier, is would this be eligible for any small claims court cases on any part of the residents if they could show any kind of negative effects on their quality of life or perhaps a business?
Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you. Potentially, I wouldn't necessarily limit it to small claims, but any legal action, but they would have to demonstrate damages. And that's, again, going back to Mayor Pro Tem's question, usually a general plan governs uses within our jurisdiction. While I agree that the impacts may be inconsistent with our general plan, I don't know if our general plan would necessarily control in this case. We can use it to support the fact that there are impacts that are contradicting our general plan, but I don't see us having jurisdiction per se using the general plan.
I have a question then. At a
Mayor Pro
point,
Tem.
there was a condition that took place similar in Moreno Valley. In Moreno Valley, there was a law passed that said until they squared away their traffic pattern over the Air Force Base, they had a certain time frame that they would be allowed to work on it. And then when it came due, the bill came due, and they had not fixed it, at a point, I think it was the Transportation Board, came back and said, you know what, it's on you. If something happens to the people that are down below here, the damage that we're talking about, then it's on you, City of Moreno Valley, if you don't take action. Moreno Valley reacted violently. They went in and shut off all their building permits. There's a way to fix this. You just have to figure out how to hurt them.
Right. I think we have, it sounds like we have to go towards the city of San Bernardino and ask them what they're going to do to fix it. And my recommendation to my colleagues would be that Mayor Pro Tem Wilson and Councilmember Robles be appointed to get together and work with staff towards that end. Councilmember Hussey.
This is the last comment on what Mr. Wilson said. Two things. Former Governor Brown, he passed a thing where anything beyond 95 decibels, it was considered a fine and a ticket for the exhaust on the trucks. Also, OSHA, occupational self-hazard, the law enforcement are working there, first responders are working there. It's a hearing loss. Once you lose your hearing, you can't get it back. The kids in there, I mean, they're losing their hearing. Not saying that, not go to the concert or anything. I mean, we all did it and stuff, but keep it at a minimal, but I'm worried about OSHA. I'm worried about our first responders and everything. How they're working there and now they're losing their hearing because that's a federal OSHA requirement. So I just had to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Robles.
And just one last comment, just, when, like, we had the Colton Sewer litigation and Riverside Highland, we had the same attorney we use that had that expertise, and I wonder if there's an attorney firm that has expertise dealing with these issues that might come in and the cheap way is just start having them attend some meetings with us and advise us, but at least we're getting that.
I'd like to stick with our city attorneys to begin with and then see if we need to bring in somebody that
But
has
if that's not their
specialization.
expertise, yeah.
Mr. City Attorney.
Oh, I'm sure one of my colleagues has
Okay.
dealt with issues like this in the past, but I
All
can
right.
find
That's
which one
fine.
that is. Madam Mayor, if I may, 2 points. I don't know if we open it up to public comment yet, but the second point is a comment I've heard from various council members, which is impacts. And the question that comes to my mind, and maybe the subcommittee along with the city manager can look at, is whether they've done an environmental review of this use. Because if there are environmental impacts, noise, lights issues, and they haven't done an environmental review, that may be something we can challenge.
All right. I'm going to open it up to comments. Are there any requests to speak on this item?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, I'll bring it back to council. And I had my recommendation. Are there alternate recommendations?
I'll second your recommendation.
Okay. And so the recommendation was for Mayor Pro Tem Wilson and Councilmember Robles to work with staff towards a direction that they would recommend that we go with this. All right, please vote.
Motion passes unanimously with Council Members Allen, Hussey, Robles voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson voting yes, and Mayor McNabb voting yes.
Thank you. We'll move to item 10, which is approval of a lease agreement with EVgo to provide electric vehicle equipment and related services for 2 EV charging stations on city property. Mr. Alan French, Public Works Director.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, council members, Mayor Pro Tem Alan French, Public Works Director, here to present this lease agreement item for electric vehicle charging stations. This item supports the 2030 goal number 3, promote economic development, and number 4, to promote successful partnerships. Electrical vehicles are increasing in numbers throughout the region and the country. The city had chargers in the past, but their use had diminished over the years as the vehicles diminished. For this renewed interest in alternative fuel vehicles, the city has identified some grant funding sources to fund this project to provide charging stations here at the city. In May 2018, the city received notice of award for a Mobile Source Air Pollution Reduction Review Committee, MSRC grant. Following that, the city pursued additional monies from the California Energy Commission. They have a Southern California Incentive Program grant. It's called the SCIP grant. And we received notice that we were eligible for that money as well. And finally, the city does have some air quality improvement fund money that's available for the project. During the proposal process for the project, there are two options for charging stations at this time for our situation. One of the options is to own the facility. Typically cities with electric utilities choose this option because they have manpower and equipment that can maintain and operate electric facilities. The other option is to lease property for the stations to the owners of the stations. For this project, we went out for proposals and we solicited proposals for both instances, both scenarios, and the results are summarized in the staff report. These are a few of the charging stations in the area. The project looked at, again, whether the city owns the facility or it just leases the property to the owner of the facility. Owning this facility, the city would be responsible for all the equipment, ongoing maintenance, upgrades, and reporting. Leasing the property to the station owner, they would be responsible for all the equipment, upgrades, and reporting that's required. For the first option, there may be additional costs and ongoing maintenance that the city would incur. For the second option, there wouldn't be any additional cost to the city now or in the future. During the proposal process, the original site was identified on the south side of the building in the existing parking stalls that are right adjacent to the building, near the existing handicap ramp or the handicap spaces. So we would just expand that and put the charging stations there at that location. And if you see on this is a map, north is up, and this is the City Hall building. These are the parking spaces that we were considering. In the proposal process, EVgo also considered spaces over here, which are near the maintenance yard. There's a chain link fence out there, and that's on the east side of the building. During the proposal process, like I said, the original site was identified on the south. The alternative was the east side of the building. And maybe more detail, you could probably see it better here on this slide. So here was the proposal, and all the equipment and infrastructure would need to come from the east side of the building down towards the front or the north side, where our existing transformer is. all the lines and equipment need to come out of the transformer, existing transformer, and to the charging station. So that would be one way that they would feed the system. This is the alternative, and it comes down the driveway again for the city hall on the east side, but instead of going around to the south, it comes across here to the area of the maintenance yard. This area was looked at because the construction of this facility requires relatively flat pad for the parking spaces and the charger stations for ADA reasons. That has to be built relatively flat, complying with the ADA requirements. Okay. This option would require the existing fence to be moved back. We would still contain the yard, but we would just move it back out of the way. At this time, staff is recommending approval of the lease agreement. Authorize the city manager to execute the agreement, to appropriate $16,000 from the Air Quality Fund, appropriate $45,000 from the MSRC grant, and $140,000 from the SCIP grant for the project, and direct staff to utilize the alternative site on the east side of the building. A representative from EVgo is here this evening, Kevin Kelleher, and we are available for questions should the council members have any.
Thank you, Director French. Are there questions of staff at this time? Councilmember Hussey.
A couple of questions. Is this site going to be open 24/7?
Yes, Councilman, it sure will be. That's charging.
Okay. Do we also, are we going to have adequate lighting? Is that part of the budget on here?
There is existing lighting out there that we would enhance. If I could show you. Let's see. So right now, where this yellow arrow is, there is a light structure, a light fixture there. And it's just a normal yard light. So I envisioned, just like the rest of the parking lights, if you've noticed, those were upgraded to LED sometime in the past, and I would envision in upgrading that as well to provide additional lighting.
All right. If there's an accident while they're charging their vehicles, the city's not going to be liable for that, correct?
An accident?
See, if
Mr.
they're-
City Attorney.
Hard to say depending on what the issue is, what occurred.
Okay, so let's say if we had cameras, are we going to get cameras to make sure if is something going on? You know, hey, I don't want our city to get sued because we're going to have something like that. You know, somebody bump into the thing or somebody gets shocked. I mean, Lord helping it won't, but I'm just looking outside the box. I want to take care of our residents, so we don't have any lawsuits.
So we do actually have some cameras in the parking lot, but the way they're going to be configuring this section of the park, this area will be improved, and the fence will be moved back, so they'll be separated from the rest of the traffic flow, and so it's going to be a big enough yard space that is an ADA requirement, so it should be out of the alley driveway area. So it should be ample space for there not to be any road conflicts.
So the ADA requirements, if we have a person who is physically challenged and they can't even hook up the thing that charges cars, somebody gonna have to help them with that? Is that part? I mean, I'm just throwing all these things out here.
No, so the ADA requirements require the user to be able to pull into the station and to be able to have ample space to get around and connect it. There's no requirement for us to have someone connect it for them. But the requirement is that there must be ample space for them to be able to, for example, if they had a wheelchair, there's ample space for them to do that. The hose has to be long enough to be able to connect to the vehicle. So that is one of the requirements of the grant, that we must have it be ADA compatible.
All right, well, so then just my main concern is the liability that the city's gonna do for this, and I'm worried about that. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hussey. Are there further questions? All right, seeing none, I'll open it up to public comment. Do we have any requests to speak on this item?
No, Madam Mayor.
I see one waving. Would you like to speak from up there? Okay. Then please state your name for the record. Is it on? We'll bring you a microphone.
It's green? No, we got it.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you. I'm naive to these cars, but I remember when they came to Grand Terrace 10 or more years ago, and those stations are abandoned. Am I not? They're just sitting there. Why aren't they activated, or why can't they be used again? Have the cars changed so much? And I only know one person with an electric car. That's my sister-in-law from the beach. And she comes up, and what's she going to do? Drive her car up here, charge it, and leave it for 5 minutes, an hour? I don't understand. I don't know how they work. But I'm just curious. Is someone going to leave their car in your parking lot while it's being charged? Is it instant like a cell phone? Do you have to wait? Where's the liability? And why would it be here at City Hall and not in the shopping center where there are the old ones? There's one by the Chevron in the old shopping center, I think. I know that there's one here. That's the only two I know about in Grand Terrace. But I'm curious because I don't know about it. And I think it's probably a waste of money, just my saying, because I don't think there's enough of them. I've seen 2 or 3 in Grand Terrace. They probably don't even live here. And I don't understand why this money's being spent. Maybe it's grants. Is it money coming from Grand Terrace? I haven't picked up on that yet from the conversation. And so why would it be so far off the beaten path where there's no houses and no vehicles and no shopping? That's my question for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Forbes. Are there any other requests to speak? All right, we'll close public comment, and we'll address the questions that were brought up. With respect to the former charging stations, why here at why here at City Hall, and restate where the money's coming from, please.
Okay, yes, Madam Mayor. So all the money referred to are grants. None of it is from city or the city general fund. We've applied for the money for this specific project, and it's granted and has to be spent on this type of a project. The older stations, they are really considered probably level 1 stations, which was years ago, and are they're obsolete right now. I don't know if even the connections are the same. So the cars have changed over the years, and the connections. So they aren't being used, and I don't think it cannot be used. So the whole point was, for the project, was to replace them with stations that we could utilize. And that's why it is here at City Hall, because we had one here. And then we did look at, we are planning to have another one at a commercial site. And we were looking at replacing that Chevron as well. But that's a future project that will be coming in.
If I could just chime in there too, just to
Mr. Duffy.
reiterate, one of the things that we did was we went out to the property owner behind the Chevron, and we asked, can we use that location? They declined to give us that option. The other thing that Mr. French references, the old chargers, they're actual level 2s, and they actually require more than 2 hours to charge. The charging stations that we're implementing are called DC fast chargers, and they will charge a vehicle in 30 minutes. And so if someone's going to come to City Hall, go to the library, they can actually charge their vehicle within 30 minutes and get a 85% charge.
Is there a fee structure assigned to the charging stations?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I don't know, Kevin, if you want to address that. Yeah.
Please come forward and state your name for the record.
I'm Kevin Kelleher. I'm a site acquisition manager for EVgo. And there is a fee structure. We have over 200 stations in California, 1,100 nationwide. This is a revolution, and if you've listened to the news, all of the auto manufacturers are saying we're not going to make gas cars after 2030. So the question was a fee structure. Yes, we have a fee structure where someone will waive their RFID card or a credit card and pay 20 cents a minute now, and there is a fee, a membership fee, which will get you a lower rate, but that is credited towards your charge. So there's no extra fees other than the per minute charge. And it's for the convenience of a DC fast charge.
Okay, so is it part of a network of chargers?
Yes, it is.
That membership, you could go anywhere and
Yes, you
charge?
can.
what happens if your car's done charging, but you decide it's a pretty good spot, so you're just going to leave it there and you deprive somebody else the opportunity?
They usually don't do that. They know it's a DC fast charge. The charge will stop. This, as far as ordinances, there are ordinances. The city of Los Angeles just made it punishable by a ticket to be charged, parked at a charging space and while not charging. So we can't monitor every parking space, but there is a lot of good etiquette among the drivers. They know that this is not, the stories you heard about people charging and saying are the level 2s that we referred to earlier, where it could take 6 to 8 hours. So they may come and park their car and go home. Here, that's not going to happen.
Okay. And so is there a fee structure for after the car is charged if they continue to park?
We're working on that. We don't have that yet, like a punitive charge, yes, that's in the works. We don't have it yet.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Mr. Duffy?
May I also, I thought your question was going to be about the fee structure in terms of the city gets revenue. There's two components of that. There's one is that you're paying us for the lease, and then based on the usage, doesn't the city get some additional proceeds?
There's going to be a lease payment that will kick in after 25% utilization. So it's not a revenue share, but it's, once the utilization is 25%, we will be paying a lease on these spaces.
Okay, so our grants go towards the purchase of these chargers and the installation of them?
Right.
And then our agreement with you is your company would take over the maintenance and the running of them and the collecting of fees?
Right, and we are absorbing some of the costs because as you saw that diagram, the length of the run all the way down there, we are also contributing financially to the installation.
Okay. What kind of reporting does the city get from you?
There, it is in the grant, the SCIP grant. You want to speak to that?
Mr. French?
Yes, Mayor. The grants require reporting of usage and any incidents, downtime, any issues that are had, so that they can ensure that the grant money that they have provided for the station is being utilized. And all the reporting, the vendor will do all the reporting, but there are requirements for all that. We would be we would be able to get copies of that, and that would all be part of the lease agreement.
Okay. Are there further questions for for Mr. Kelleher? Okay, I have Councilmember Robles and Councilmember Allen, and then I'll get to Mr. Duffy. Okay, Councilmember Robles.
I was wondering, are there, in your experience, are these more in commercial areas rather than city halls?
It started out that way, more in retail centers, but now I'm working with a lot of cities. City of Santa Monica, we have one station in the city of Culver City, and I have 2 more under development right now. This is, as I said, there's going to be a lot of charging needed, so it's in both examples, both venues.
Yeah, and then my final question is for the city manager. What happened to the property that we own at Stater Brothers? Is that, why would not we consider citing this there?
We actually reached out to, Councilperson Robles is referencing the park and ride structure at Stater Brothers, where the city entered into sort of a long-term program, where it's park and ride program. So we looked at that location, we looked at our existing facilities. So what we did was we utilized this grant for City Hall, but then we also submitted another grant for commercial locations. So, for example, we did receive the okay to partner with the owner of the Walgreens complex. They said absolutely they'd sign on board. We initially tried to work with the former Stater Brothers site. That owner said we're not interested. We reached out to the Stater Brothers site, but I was not successful in getting through on that component, and I think partially because we had a lease on that land that wasn't completed in the process because redevelopment ended, so we weren't able to make the final payments on that.
Councilmember Allen.
I just wanted to make sure Mr. Duffy or Mr. French, either one. So our grants are going to cover the cost of the parking lot reconfiguration, installation of all the electrical components underground and above ground. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
With an investment by Mr. Kelleher's firm, correct?
So there'll be no general fund dollars used on this project.
Councilmember Hussey.
All right. So they're doing all that construction, so they're gonna be on their own metering system too with Edison? Or do we have to pay for the electrical and?
That's correct.
reimbursement?
We'll be under our own meter, we pay the electric.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Duffy.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, Mayor, that you had a question about the reports. So what we would do is we would include that as part of our monthly reports and the data that we provide to the council, not the usage of the facility.
All right, thank you. Okay, before us is a lease agreement with EVgo. What would we like to do with this lease agreement?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we move forward on this, but I'm trying to find the motion to read. Approve a lease agreement between the city and EVgo for electric vehicle service equipment and related services for an EV charging station project on city property contingent on the Planning Commission finding that the project is compliant with. Shall I read this entire thing?
You could probably say staff recommendation.
Yes. Staff recommendation will be
Because
just fine.
that gets the site and everything. All right, so I have a motion by Councilmember Allen for staff recommendation.
I'll second the motion.
Second by Councilmember Robles. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously with council members Allen, Hussey, and Robles voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson voting yes, and Mayor McNabo voting yes.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Kelleher. And we will move to request for future agenda items. Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, so this is our first time going through this process. This item is a request by each of the council members identified in item H to gauge whether there is interest amongst the council to have staff research these issues, work on the staff report, and consideration at a future meeting. It does not necessarily mean the next meeting. It'll just be at a future meeting after staff has gone through its background research and preparing the staff report. If you were to approve an item tonight, all you're doing is approving that it come back as a council item. It does not mean you're obligated to necessarily vote for that item when it comes back. I want to make that clear distinction. So, for example, throwing one out there, a community survey, there may be an interest at least having a discussion on it, but when it comes back after staff has gone through the analysis, giving you a staff report, you may say, you know what, thank you, but no. So I want to make that clear that you're not obligated to approve an item just because you're asking that it come back at a future meeting. So with that, I'll give it back to the mayor.
Okay, so we will take these one by one, but at this time, I'm going to open it up for public comment on the entirety. So if there are members of the public that want to speak to all of the items or any of the items.
That is correct. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, Jeffrey McConnell.
Jeffrey McConnell, 21758 Walnut Avenue. First of all, I have a question. Is this line item H going to appear on every agenda, whether there's anything before us or not? Because sometimes things come up during the middle of the meeting where a council member would like to see it on a future agenda item.
Mr. City Attorney, I believe that we addressed that when we approved this, so would you like to refresh?
Sure, Madam Mayor. So under the policy approved at the last meeting, council members will notify the city manager a week before the next agenda of what items they wish to see under item H at the next meeting. So this will be a recurring item.
Okay, but if something comes up during the meeting, they can't add it to that list? They have
That is
to wait?
correct.
Okay. Okay, well, first of all, thank you for two of the items that I've been talking about for the last several meetings. Community survey and the priorities workshop are on here. I support those, of course, since I have already mentioned that several times. But I also wanted to support number 5, charging the city San Bernardino County Fire rent for the Grand Terrace Fire Station. I think that's a long time coming. I attended some of the meetings when they were going to tax us without representation. And
the captain at the time made mention that they were trying to take it over years ago during the remodel, and I'm glad we did not let them take it over. We became a city for self-determination, and I believe that maintaining and controlling our fire station is part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. Next speaker is Jeremy Briggs.
Good evening, Jeremy, 22547 Monona Drive, Grand Terrace. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I just wanted to come up and remember I seen this on a few weeks ago. Commissioner Allen brought up about the youth council, and I just wanted to come up and give my support on the youth council. I do tremendous work with the youth, and I believe their input will be great impact on this city. So the teenagers I deal with, the high schoolers, everyone, I believe they have a say-so. I mean, you saw the kids today coming in and asking. I mean, they really want to make a difference, and I believe a youth community program for that and center would be great with, you know, someone overseeing it, of course, but somewhere where they have a point and say. Like I said, that's where I'm looking at for the future of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Briggs. All right, that's the last request to speak. Then we'll bring it back to council, and we will start with item number 1, change commission appointments to direct city council appointment.
Madam Mayor, Bobby did have one.
Oh, okay. Then I will reopen public comment. Bobby Forbes.
You're on E?
No,
public
we're on
hearing?
H.
H, okay, I'm sorry.
We are looking at requests for future agenda items. And so what we will do is we will go through each of those 5, and if we have a motion and a second and council members vote to bring that back at a future date, we will bring it back.
Okay, not sure if this will qualify for what you're talking about, but I would like to make a request for conversation, whatever it is, anything that's going to be happening within the city that the public is involved in. I think that there needs to be better announcements. If they're sending out letters, it needs to go farther, not just next door. If you're having a workshop to the community, you need to have it in enough places that people can see it. I don't know what all those places are, but not enough people in town are seeing the announcements to come to things happening in the city of Grand Terrace. People talk about it, and I know people are busy, they can't always come, but when it hits in their neighborhood, they come. Not just our neighborhood, we're really good at it, but other neighborhoods too. And I just, whatever's coming before council, there needs to be a better communication to the public so that they know that it's there. I didn't have time to go on the website to look and see what was up here tonight, so I'm a little unfamiliar with what all's being discussed. But I just think that the public needs to be made more aware on anything that you're doing, if it's anything that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Forbes. If I can add something to come back under item H, that perhaps we review our communication with our public on projects and other items. That would come back on next week's itemized list, so I'm letting you know that now. Thank you. All right, so item number 1, change commission appointments to direct city council appointments and running with term of appointing official. Each member of council picks one.
I don't know what the impacts of this would be. I just thought it'd be worth having a discussion, looking to see what other cities do. I don't know what the terms of our current commissioners are, but I thought it'd be something to look at.
Okay, so you're motioning to bring that back?
Yes.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, so there's a motion and a second. For item number 1, please vote.
Well,
Motion passes with council members Allen, Hussey, and Robles voting yes, Mayor McNabb voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson votes no.
Okay. Item number 2, community survey. Is there a motion for this item?
I move community survey.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Robles, second by Councilmember Hussey. Please vote. Do we need to vote again?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm sorry.
Please vote.
Oh, I can't get anything. Oh, there we go.
Motion passes. Council members Allen, Hussey, and Robles voting yes. Mayor Pro Tem Wilson voting yes, and Mayor McNamara voting yes.
Okay, priorities workshop.
I move item 3, priorities workshop.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Robles, second by Councilmember Allen. Please vote.
Motion passes with council members Allen, Hussey, and Robles voting yes. Mayor McNamara voting yes. Mayor Pro Tem Wilson votes no.
Okay. Number 4, establishing Youth Council or Youth City Council Week.
I move item 4, establishing youth council or youth city council week.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Robles, second by Councilmember Allen. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously with council members Allen, Hussey, and Robles voting yes. Mayor Pro Tem Wilson voting yes, and Mayor McNamara voting yes.
Charging station, San Bernardino County Fire rent for the City of Grand Terrace Fire Station.
I make a motion to look into charging the County of San Bernardino rent for the Grand Terrace Fire Station.
I'll second it.
Councilmember Hussey motions, second by Councilmember Allen. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously with council members Allen, Hussey, and Robles voting yes. Mayor Pro Tem Wilson voting yes, and Mayor McNamara voting yes.
All right, thank you very much. City Manager Communications.
Thank you, Mayor. I did want to start before I do the communications, just to acknowledge that. So I met yesterday with Councilman Allen, and during my meeting with Councilman Allen, he asked the question about combining the FSA grant together to be able to allow to fund all the projects that were requested. So I did want to acknowledge that. He asked the question, I asked the county the question, and we were successful in doing that. I also did want to also comment that to the Terrace View Elementary School and their project they're doing for the video, that the city has a YouTube channel, an actual City of Grand Terrace YouTube channel, and our webpage is the third most popular municipal, our Facebook page is the third most popular municipal webpage in San Bernardino County. So they can get lots of hits and feedbacks, and we'll tweet too. We're not quite there for Snapchat, but we do tweet. Okay, so onward to my quick report. This is the video that we put together just announcing the opening of the new Vivienda Commerce Way. So that video did receive over 2,000 views and counting. Also, we have the Walk on Blue Mountain, on the 12th annual Walk on Blue Mountain, Sunday, March 3rd at 8 a.m. Begin the hike no later than 10:45, start down at 12:30 p.m. If you make it to the top, you will get a coupon to be able to go to Old Delberto's for a 50% off any items that they have, or it's also a coupon good for Woody's to get a free coffee cake with the purchase of any lunch that you're going to have. So, and then there's also some neat little things that are happening on the trail. We have some mile and altitude markers that will be along the way. They're actually part of the Grand Terrace Rock Club. You'll have the rocks featured along with the different distance and mile markers as you climb the hill. We also have for purchase at the event the I Hiked Blue Mountain visors for $10, and there's also T-shirts available by the Friends of Blue Mountain. Also, a quick announcement that the blood drive will be occurring on Wednesday, March 6th, 2019, from 1:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. We had a great turnout last year. We're hoping to have the same results for this year. That concludes my comments, Mayor.
And I would encourage people to sign up for the blood drive prior to going there. You can set up an appointment, and it does make it a whole lot easier. You don't have to go and sit and wait. It's kind of like a fast pass at Disneyland, except you're doing something good for somebody. All right, so we do have a closed session, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 of subdivision D of Government Code Section 54956.9. Number of potential cases is 1. If you are not here when we come back, thank you for being here today. And our next regular scheduled meeting will be Tuesday, March 12th, 2019 at 6 p.m. right here. And tonight we are closing or adjourning our meeting in memory of our lost community member, Bill Darwin. And so at this time, we are in recess. All right, we'll reconvene to open session. The council met in closed session, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 of subdivision D of Government Code Section 54956.9. Number of potential cases 1. Council gave direction to staff, and there are no reportable actions at this time. So we will adjourn our regular meeting of this Grand Terrace City Council in memory of longtime community member Bill Darwin. Our next regular city council meeting will be held on Tuesday, March 12th, 2019 at 6 p.m. Any request to have an item placed on a future agenda must be made in writing and submitted to the city clerk's office, and the request will be processed in accordance with council procedures. Thank you all for your discussion and your attention. We are adjourned.